it allowed individuals to be able to say, hey, this is where I stand. And people could infer from that what they wanted. But really, it brought Canadians together.
Welcome back to Closer Look on this Wednesday, the 7th day of January, 2026. How many times have you written 2025?
I feel like I don't write anymore.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. Derek and I were just talking about that before we came on. I was making some notes, and it's like it feels weird to write.
Oh, it does.
Because I was writing a paragraph, and I'm like, my hand's tired, and I can't even read my own writing.
It's crazy.
Because we're so used to this.
There'll be a generation soon, if not the current one, the young kids now, that will not write at all.
No.
Like, what do they...
No. And I notice even with text messaging, like people just like speak into they won't even type it.
They won't even
just
type
speak
it. Well, why? Why not? Yeah, it's so easy. Soon we just won't even walk. We'll just lie around all day.
Welcome to the lazy generation.
I know. We should do a show.
I'm going to spearhead
We should do a show on that.
Let's do it.
Well, but yeah, how do people sign for their check? Well, who writes a check anymore?
Wow. Somebody just dated
Someone's
themselves.
old. Yeah, look at me. Yeah, my cane's over there. Literally.
It actually is. Okay, we didn't touch on this when we came back, but quickly, World Juniors. Did you watch much of it?
I do watch the World Juniors. The kids like the World Juniors.
Yeah.
I get excited about it. It's kind of a Christmas tradition.
It is.
Especially, and we're going to talk about Canada on today's show, but especially at a time where the Canadian pride means a heck of a lot more than it did just a little while ago. And, you know, the idea that Canada could have played America in the final was, a big thing. We did with the Four Nations Cup we saw last year was huge. And Canada is just not the dominant hockey force they once were. Every other country has caught up. Right?
Yeah, and I think it's going to force this country to look in its hockey mirror and say what's gone wrong and we need to fix this and fix it fast.
But it's great hockey to watch. Like even the game where Canada got eliminated from Czechia 3 years in a row. Czechia
I
took
know.
Team Canada. It was a great hockey game.
Yeah,
it was really good. Like the goals were beautiful. Every goal was beautiful. It was the skill level. It was a tough game. It was great to watch, and I'm excited about the Olympics.
I don't know if everyone has moved out of the Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota area, but the seats were empty.
Yeah.
Crazy empty.
Did you watch the final? Who was the final? The final was Sweden.
Was Sweden and Finland.
Czechia,
right.
No, I'm sure nobody was. I mean, I'm sure they were banking on the Canada-U.S. final, right? And there's no Russia, right? It hasn't been for years because of the war.
Yeah.
And so that kind of takes away that element of it too, that another great rivalry.
But next year when the games, or the tournament moves to Red Deer in Edmonton, I would guarantee you that if you had Sweden and Czechia in the final, the place would be filled.
But we're at a point now where you can't assume it. Like it's been 3 years now that Canada's been eliminated before even getting to the gold medal game. They haven't gotten to the gold medal game in 4 years, I think, or 5 years. Those days are gone. It's a tougher game. And when you think about it too, watching it, sorry for our listeners who aren't into hockey, but we'll stop soon. But watching it, all those other teams had 10 or 12 guys playing in the Canadian Hockey League. So they're playing in the OHL. They're playing so these are kids that have already come over to North America. They're playing in the top junior league.
Yes.
They play against these guys, and they want to win just as bad as anyone else. Of
course
they don't roll over for Canada anymore. So so the Olympics will be exciting to watch.
Yes, they will. In that vein, Rogers has just announced a new initiative with jerseys.
Did you see that? The jersey,
the Great Canadian Jersey
They want people
initiative.
to donate their beer league jerseys, and they're going to make a bunch of patchwork.
Tell you one thing, I'd be afraid to open my hockey bag for what might come out of that thing.
Because you can imagine the stink in this.
If they want it, they can have them.
So if I work at Rogers, like in the Thornhill Mall, someone's going to show up with all their stinky jerseys. Here you go. You put this in the bin. There's your Canadian pride. All right. Speaking of Canadian pride, Canadian articles of clothing, we're going to talk today with the co-creator of the now famous Canada is Not for Sale hat.
Yes, we are.
I'm excited about this conversation. This went viral last year, and we're going to talk to Liam Mooney about how this came together and what he's hoping to accomplish now that he's had his viral moment.
You'll recall U.S. President Donald Trump floating the idea of annexing Canada, and Ontario Premier Doug Ford pushing back with a blunt message. Canada is not for sale. Within days, that line became a piece of wearable defiance, and a viral one at that. Tonight, we're joined by Liam Mooney, one of the creators behind the Canada is Not for Sale hat. What began as a creative rebuttal has turned into a crash course in just how hard it is to actually make things in Canada, and a mission to strengthen Canadian manufacturing along the way. Liam, welcome to the show. We appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, Liam, we'll get into the hat and that whole experience in a moment, but let's start with you. What's your story? Tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm a designer, innovator, creative in Ottawa, and I run a design firm here called Jack Pine, and we specialize in bringing design and innovation to Canadian business. And we do that with their products, their places, their experiences, and their communications. And so we try to bring innovation to businesses that need to create new products or maybe even adjust a product they've made a long time ago.
All right, good stuff. If you're looking for some products, Jack Pine Dynamic Branding, give them a search. Okay, Liam, take us back to that moment. You're watching Doug Ford on Fox TV in the States. When you heard him utter the words, "We're not for sale," what made you think this needs to become a hat?
Well, I'm a student of the political landscape. I really enjoy the political discussion, the political imagination. And so constantly tuning into different parts of our rhetoric or debate or exploration of concepts and ideas. And so Premier Ford was on Fox one night. I think when he uttered those words, this property is not for sale, I think our reaction as creatives, as sort of culture jammers, I guess, in that moment was to say, why don't we take his most powerful political symbol, if it were, and try to subvert it in some way in an effort to fill what, at least to us, felt like a real gap in leadership in the moment within the Canadian context.
What's fascinating about the hat, too, is it's said a lot as a great metaphor, right? Because the whole Trump movement has been very much about a baseball cap.
Yeah, I mean, what you want to be able to do is say a lot without saying anything at all. And it allowed people, individuals, to be able to say, hey, this is where I stand. And people could infer from that what they wanted. But really, it brought Canadians together. I mean, during the federal elections, for example, I saw pictures of people beside Mark Carney wearing the hat, people at conservative rallies wearing the hat. I even saw Jagmeet Singh and the federal NDP promoting the Canada is not for sale message in some of their central campaign messaging at times online. And I think he even maybe had it on a pulpit during one of his pressers. So and we saw that in our conversations with customers across Canada. It really brings people together from every walk of life. Now, of course, there are some folks who say, well, Canada's been sold to all these countries and that sort of thing. But what we're really interested in is bringing Canadians together, having a really positive story to tell. And, I was asked early on by an Alberta radio station, like, hey, 34% of Albertans are interested in joining America. Like, what do you think about that? And I said, well, that says to me the vast majority of Albertans are proud to be Canadian. And, so that's how we approach this.
Yeah. Can you talk about the timeline a bit, Liam, from when you had that inspiration watching the premiere on TV? How long did it take to actually get the hat in your hands?
So we created our first product within hours, at least digitally, conceptually. We were able to get the artwork into some mock-up format. And then, you start to realize the journey of trying to make something in Canada. And you discover, actually, hey, we're not going to have our first product in hand, even if we order it now, probably for another 9 days.
Wow.
And so, and that's to say nothing about any other opportunities or challenges that would come up. And you just say, hey, we just made this hat, we made this store, let's order it for ourselves. And one of the challenges we found was, if you're trying to make something, say as a maker, a creator, an artist, you went to art school and you're going to make notebooks. There are some ways of selling that. Shopify is a great example. So creators can go online, they can put up a store, and those stores have apps. And those apps enable you to connect with companies that will make you a product and ship it to your customers. You know about this, it's dropship. So when you look into the apps that are allowing and facilitating this kind of commerce and allowing a creative to take an idea of the mind and make it real, most of those apps are using manufacturing and production and logistics methods that are, global in scale. They're distributed in nature. And so you can get definitionally through that model things that are technically made in Canada. That's possible. But for the most part, you're dealing with products that will take a long time to get to you. And you don't know that when you first start a project like this.
Mm-hmm. Liam, just for the benefit of the audience, when you refer to us, of course, you're referring to Emma, your partner in life and in business.
You got it.
Let's fast forward to when you get the call from the Premier's office. I understand he's traveling to Ottawa for the First Minister's meetings, and they want a couple of hats. A bit of a whirlwind for both you and Emma. Can you kind of walk us through that timeline and what happened?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, just days before we were being featured in the Ottawa Business Journal, a local paper. And, we started getting messages from people and contacts and, texts from folks saying, hey, this is great. Started selling them. CEO of Shopify, Harley Finkelstein, purchased one. So we knew like, hey, this is going to be big. We wanted to promote that. Then he went online. Of course, we couldn't say anything, but he came on and said, hey, I purchased one of these.
And that was his tweet was simply bought one, was it not?
Yeah, exactly. And it was really gratifying in that moment to say, okay, wow, this is a leader. They're not only part of this company, but they're part of these broader conversations around, our commerce that's happening in Canada. So it was kind of cool right away for it to see like, wow, okay, this is going to resonate here with this person and the other types of people. It was just like, okay, we don't know where this is going to go, but it was just like a dérive, I guess would be the word. And we just sort of followed it where it would go. And eventually we get this call. Hey, we saw this. We have this meeting. Could you please, produce one?
It happened that quickly. So did you do it the next day? How did it work?
So we got a call the day before the First Minister's meeting in Ottawa. I probably condensed what would make a lot of businesses or entrepreneurs like, at least a few weeks or a month into the span of an hour, a few hours. We condensed a lot of timelines. Like I started calling companies saying, hey, I need to translate just this file. Okay, we have an artwork file. I need to make it into a file that I can use for production. So I can take any factory or any small scale manufacturer with this equipment in Ottawa and they can make it for me. But without this file, I can't do it. Mm-hmm. I calling around. That's 3 weeks there. There's no possible way I can do that any earlier. I call this one shop. They're like, we're too busy for this, but you call this company. I know they're very busy as well, but they might be able to help you. Just tell them I called. It's a guy named Steve. So I call this company Sam Group.
Everyone write that company down. Steve. When you ever need a hand, call Steve.
At the Sam Group. That guy is a gem, family business. They've been involved with a lot of the iconic names and brands in Canadian clothing and apparel over the years. And that's what you discover. A lot of the businesses that we have been buying from or working with, manufacturing with, producing with, shipping with, they're all family businesses. They're all multi-generational. Their families are all working in the business. Father, daughter, wife, husband, brother-in-law. Everyone's rowing in the same direction. It's been really cool to be a part of that as well. But yeah, so basically that day I had to pull it all together and scramble to pull this hat off and dropped it off with his team that was in Ottawa.
Just one, Liam? Did you give them one or a few?
Gave them a couple hats and just, didn't know what they would do with it. And, because we thought, okay, well, maybe a staffer would want one or wasn't sure. But we had no expectation that it would happen and certainly not in the way that it did.
So you dropped it off like at the hotel for them, and then the next day you see it on the Premier's head?
I think they have like a local office somewhere. So they were down in the lobby and I met them late that night and I gave them the hats.
People were wondering what was being handed over there late at night. So you didn't get to meet the Premier then?
No, I did not. But that came a little bit later and that was very, very interesting and a really cool look into his life and the role of the Premier just in general. Yeah. And the impact of his brother Rob on his life and some of those things. And but really all of it's been a real surprise. And I haven't really, we've been so busy with this. And we also have a service firm that's really, we started being as an absurdly creative agency was my idea. I had interned in Toronto off of Queen Street, and I was like coming back to Ottawa, and I was thinking like, what's going on in Ottawa? We need to spice it up. And so my whole mission initially was like, let's bring a whole new kind of creativity to the city for businesses to work with and all that sort of thing. And then over time, really attracted really brilliant people from architecture, industrial design, economics. And so we started a practice that was very multidisciplinary in nature. And now we're, through the experience of this, manufacturing this product, taking on a new challenge to create a completely new product, which is a process that would take a lot of companies at least 12 years, a lot of investment, and with no sense of whether it would be successful or not. We condensed that process into 4 months, and we've had a nice positive start. And so we're now focusing our business as a service, like how can we help other people, entrepreneurs, businesses with their challenges and needs in these areas. There are unique networks we've built. There are unique skills we've developed, unique insights we've gleaned. And like, we just think it could be very valuable as businesses here confront the reality of the seismic shifts that are going on around us, and thinking, okay, well, like it's not feasible for every business or every Canadian to buy everything in Canada, no matter what the cost is. But we have to start producing more here. We have to start taking up the challenge. We have to start innovating. And so we are now just very driven, very passionately to be a part of that, to help businesses do that. And basically, as well, demonstrate as a living example that it can be done and that there is a positive impact to the community, to the economy, to workers that can come from that. If you make a concerted effort to do your purchasing in Canada, bring your manufacturing into Canada, but not just try to compete with labor markets and machines and like places that are different. Like China will beat us like that if we're just going to bring, let's say, oh, we're going to bring that decoration and we're going to make it here. But it's like, okay, like let's say there's 10 to 15 million Christmas trees that get made every year in Canada. That means there's 10 to 50 million households doing that, putting up decorations. That's a lot of product being bought. If you're going to compete, like, you need to, customers are, I guess, innovation. We need an innovation mindset, and that's sort of what we want to encourage, and look for opportunities to make a process better, to enhance the way that a good gets its value, and kind of change the game for Canada one lever at a time.
I want to definitely dig in. We both want to dig into that a little bit more. But just to finish off that story with the premier, was it the next day that you saw him on the news with the hat, or how did that come up? So what was that like?
So surreal. I mean, still to this day, I can't believe that it happened in the way that it happened. Like so the next day we're at home, we was just getting ready to go out and go to our little office that we work out of downtown, and just kind of getting ready. And we knew that like I had CPAC on. And so you could see that there were premiers coming out one by one. And it seemed at one point, okay, hey, they're going east to west. So I think Legault comes out, and I'm like, okay, maybe Premier Ford's going to come out now, but I think they jumped a province. And so kind of got all mixed up. But eventually Premier Ford came out wearing the hat, and I was literally just sort of I guess I was verbalizing a lot of excitement in the house. I was sort of screaming. I was just like, he's wearing the hat.
It's a phenomenal story, right? Because like you said, you're scrambling the day before to get it. You get it, you drop it off late at night. We've all had those kind of days. You're exhausted. You go home, you pass out. And the next day that happens. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And, Thank God it did happen. I believe in a way. A couple of weeks later, there's a CBC coverage of the inauguration and the panel. We were in Toronto. We went on CBC Morning News with Heather Hiscox the next morning, but they were going to have us on the day of the inauguration as well. So we had gone in for that. But they had to bump us out of the schedule. We would have been the only group they interviewed that day. Otherwise, it was like all officials, like Premier of Alberta, Premier of this province, and then the ambassador at that time, Kristen Hillebrand. And she said she didn't directly, explicitly note the hat, but the language used in the interview suggested like, hey, this has been a transformative event that's occurred with respect to how Canadians see themselves. And it's an important thing right now that we're coming together around these ideas of having pride in our country.
Liam, go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
Just saying it's hard to compute, and then being interviewed by the fashion critic of the New York Times alongside some of the world's top academics talking about the role of art in protest, being a centerfold inside of New York Magazine.
Oof, I wasn't sure where you were going.
Part of the cover story. Yeah.
It's a family show, just to be clear.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, for sure. But and that's just some of the U.S. I mean, that of course Mike Myers went on and used the Canada's not for sale idea to bring his moniker of elbows up to the lexicon of the moment.
And now you're here on our podcast, Liam.
See?
Which is
this is great.
It's unbelievable. You've certainly hit the peak.
And it's been it's all Canadians that have inspired us, to do this. And we're just very grateful.
Liam, let's circle back to manufacturing specifically in our country. Yeah. You've said the Canadian companies jump through hoops just to get onto store shelves. I guess the question is, what's broken in the system?
Our costs are really high, so we need to innovate. If you're going to go into a retail environment, let's say you want to find a national store that has, let's say, 20 or more locations. When they come to you and say, hey, I really like your product, we'll put it in our stores. And this is if you need that, right? There's two types of businesses. You might have a world where you can reach your customers directly because you have such a strong brand. Or you might have a product, even if you have a strong brand, but the product is not known, you might need to get into stores. And if you're going to do that, and if you want to scale an idea in this country, and it's like this everywhere, the reality is the businesses that run the stores, when they go to buy their products, they need to see okay, this price and quality matrix. So if I buy this from you at, let's say they tell me, we'll buy this from you as you propose for $25. That would mean we would need to sell it for $50. Our brand would allow us, we could demand the price of $50, but just because we could doesn't mean we should. And so what we're asking you is to come back to us, and we need that product to cost $10 to $15 landed cost for you. And we will buy 10,000 for Canada Day, we'll buy 10,000 for Christmas. Well, your challenge then as an entrepreneur, as a person who's trying to manufacture that product is, okay, how can I do as much or all of it here in Canada? So, made in Canada definition is 51% direct cost of the manufacturing is in Canada, and the final transformation that makes the thing that it is, the thing in Canada. And that's to say nothing of a product of Canada, which, it's entirely integrated Canadian everything, mostly. If you're going to do that, you need to really examine everything. So, and there's so much nuance. So for example, you want to make a plastics product. Let's say your plastics product has two pieces and it needs to be bonded and it needs to be painted. If you don't have a shop that does all of those things, you need to find at least one other component. If those two things are very far away from each other, you're going to have problems. More cost, more delays, more complexity, more coordination. In China, all of this stuff is ecosystem based. If you want to make a product, you go to a specific city and all of the labor, all of the machining, all of the skills, all of the people that know how to make that thing are there. So, like in our experience, we made initially hats, sweaters, t-shirts, stickers. Those are things that people know how to make, right? Those are things, and even some cases, inventory already exists. Like there's blue hats on a shelf. Not too many, because you'd be foolish to carry a ton. But like there are things, and people know what those things are. And there's labor and machines and skills that know how to make those things in all sorts of jurisdictions, including Canada. But if you want to go and make something new, there's no inventory for that. There's no machining for that. There's no tools for that. So you have to go through a process of sense making, explaining, intuiting. And you have to be very, very resolute and sort of like, but somehow still flexible and suffer a lot of confusion and setback along the way. I mean, and you have to, I kind of rambling, I'm losing focus, but I just want to convey to your listeners that it's possible to make in Canada. People shouldn't be discouraged. Mm-hmm. There are people who've been through it, have learned a lot, and are willing to help and want to help. And I believe it's imperative for us, especially right now. I mean, we can't let other forces make us insolvent as a nation. Mm-hmm. We have to, it's dependent on us to take actions. And governments have to coordinate that. Large industry has to coordinate that. But so too do grassroots people, organizations, civil society, small business, entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. So we're in our part of the world, we're in our part of the economy, and we're just saying, hey, we're going to keep going forward. We're going to keep bringing leadership to this in the way that we know how, in the part that we're involved in. And we want to, at that same time, encourage Canadians to do this and to participate in it and to take up the challenge.
You're a very passionate guy, and clearly for you, this is so much more than a hat or a T-shirt. This is about Canada and about strengthening so many aspects of our country, and you're very committed to that. Do you hope that 5 years from now you'll look back and say that you were able to help with that process, that you're rallying people together?
I know we're going to. I mean, we're already doing it. I have received so many messages, and I've already had so many. It's Wednesday of the first week of the year. This is like my 15th, 16th meeting of the week. Like I'm so, it's just, I'm determined to demonstrate that we are not a hinterland. If we're living through a doctrine that seeks to suggest and make real this idea that there's a metropolis on a shining hill, a shining city on a hill that will just take resources from a population. So no. And what we need to demonstrate is innovation. What we need to demonstrate is vim and vigor and a belief and a confidence. And it's not like we'll get to that later. Mm-hmm. It's like we need it yesterday, mm-hmm. kind of thing.
Does it feel even more urgent in light of recent events in the last week or so? This idea that, our national newspapers are talking about, and intelligent people all over the country are mm-hmm. talking about, that we need to be more ready than ever that the United States could invade Canada.
From day one, this has been about sovereignty. Like literally from day one. That's why we've sponsored and partnered with that organization, Wounded Warriors. Mm-hmm. Those are the people who fought for our sovereignty from day one. They're the reason we are a constitutional monarchy, a parliamentary democracy, a free and open society that believes that prosperity is brought from hard work, shared prosperity. We believe really fundamentally that we're a really cool mix of English, British, French, Métis, Indigenous, Inuit people, global cultures, that there's a certain pride in kind of making that work, but believing in these core fundamental ideas that bind us together, that make us a very unique flavor of Western culture and society that's valid that has a reason to exist, that has a voice, that has a real perspective that's different from the Kingdom of Sweden or the Republic of Germany or France or the United States of America. So, you asking me about that, and I think, yeah, the answer is yes. I mean, it is more meaningful. It's, we're seeing potentially these notions of like theories and doctrines, but they're now being made real. And so it's like, are we in a might is right kind of territory? And if so, like, that's beyond like realpolitik and power politic. That's into a politics of cynicism. And the only way to overcome that, I believe right now, is to focus on the things that we can control, the things that are within our midst. And so I am a small business owner in the economy that is in Canada. I have levers in my midst. I have dollars that I can spend. I have people that I will hire. I have companies I will entrust with my projects. I want them to be Canadian. I need them to be Canadian because I believe in Canada. I love Canada. But it's like, if we're living through the reality of like this Staples thesis, it's like we're more than Staples. And I know that's like this common refrain. It's like, we started with the fur trade and the cod fisheries and the timber and the mining. And it's like, okay, it's fine. Yeah, but along the way, we've also invented a lot of cool things. We're highly educated people. We're extremely ingenious. To survive winter, it requires a lot of creativity and collaboration. A lot of, working with strangers through kind of weird circumstances. You need to have relations with your neighbor when it's minus 20 if you need a cup of milk. So, like, our context shapes our reality. So and that's part of the psychology that I think is messing up a lot of us, in the sense of like, our history is like, yes, we had Indigenous peoples here. And before that, the first French, we had some Norse peoples come up into Lonceau Meadows. And then like the first, European civilizations here were like French and English. And so our context was like very much European. But then as time went on, like our physical reality, like our comparative advantage economically would have been like, according to Ricardo, like, hey, physically, we're literally landlocked with these guys. So it makes sense, like, put railroads, make a border, but like kind of make it porous. You guys all speak English. You drink Coca-Cola, you wear blue jeans, you like NFL football. The original six wasn't just like Canadian franchises. It also included the New York Rangers, Detroit Red Wings, Boston Bruins. All of Acadia are like, they can't decide who are we, Bruins fans or Montreal Canadiens fans or still Nordiques fans or what, like. So in this moment, it's like people want to stay with our most recent and immediate context, which is all of these security and economic partnerships, our physical, literal reality, us expressing and living out our economic advantage. But then the rules of the game have changed, not just economically, but within the sphere of international relations as well at a high level. And, I sort of believe on some level that this whole thing is a cover to affect Canada the most, in the sense that if we set up a global tariff regime and say it's reciprocal, like, okay, fine. You're entitled to kind of define the terms of doing business with your nation. But like, they have to know that it affects no nation greater than Canada. And so, so that's the complication, right? And trying to be responsible as individuals, it's like, it's not wise to incite like vitriolic hatred of populations and people. Like, so many Canadian families have Americans in them, or have America as part of their life. And so, yeah, it's tricky. But I guess within all of that, that's why we are doing what we're doing, because it's like, well, what can we control? What can we do? Mm-hmm. And regardless of people's theories of this or why that's happening, why Venezuela's doing that happened, and why this is going to happen with maybe Greenland or all these, and what this means for Canada, this prognosticating, it's like, we don't actually know. We can see scenarios, and scenarios may unfold, different ones. All we can do is shape our little part of the world wherever we are, and be aware of the, broadly speaking, different scenarios that may unfold, and look and sort of associate signals to these scenarios. And as you start to identify signals, you're going to say, okay, well, we're shifting toward this scenario. And as you shift toward that scenario, there's going to be things in your sphere of influence as a person, an entrepreneur, a Canadian, that you can do.
Mm-hmm. All right. Liam, thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Look, it's no secret that Canadians wear their hearts on their sleeves. Now they can wear them on their heads.
Yes.
So, we certainly tip our cap to Liam.
I do think, it's amazing. It's a fascinating story, because if you're in the creative world and you create things and you come up with an idea and it, the light bulb goes on and you feel so excited about this idea, and then to have a story like that where you turned it around in a matter of hours, got it into the hands of the Premier's staff, and the next day, remember, those First Ministers meetings are all over the news. The next day, there's Doug Ford wearing your hat. Yeah. He talked about it, but it must have been knock you over kind of amazing.
Oh my God, I can't imagine.
Yeah, and then to think that, he's trying to use that platform for good, and I love when we have guests on that talk about that. They're trying to use their power for good. As what's that, Spider-Man?
Something like that.
Something like that.
You know what I wanted to ask him? Did the Premier's office pay for the hats?
I hope they did.
They better
full
have.
Price, I would hope. He said he doesn't gouge people. So
could be an FOI opportunity there.
I know. Yeah, it's a great story. And I think we need that kind of passion right now.
Absolutely.
I always hesitate because I don't want to sound cheesy talking about this, but we do. We need that kind of passion in Canada right now.
I felt like standing up and singing "Oh Canada"
there you go.
at one point.
Exactly.
When Liam was speaking.
I don't have a hat of my own, but I can see why they're doing so well and why it's. Yeah. And I do appreciate the fact that him and Emma are trying to use that for good. The reason we asked him to come on is because there was news articles over the holidays about him talking about how he's trying to use his lessons to help other Canadian entrepreneurs. Yeah. Which is a great thing.
And that's the takeaway, right? We need to find a way to make it easier to do business in our own country.
Yeah, we have a lot
not of all these hurdles.
We have a lot of growing up to do, and that's the one thing that we've learned in this trade war is that we need to do better on our own. We really do, and we've in a lot of ways we took it for granted that we had this massive market right beside us to sell our goods to, and we're learning that the hard way. And hopefully, 2026 brings some big changes.
Let's hope. All right, Canada is not for sale. Neither is this podcast. Unless, of course, you want to talk big bucks, then, we're all ears.
We'll take a sponsor.
Absolutely, we will.
Absolutely.
Closer look at villagemedia.ca. If you want a hat or you want to sponsor the show, we're happy to have that conversation. Closer look podcast.ca. Sign up. We'll send you emails every night. Derek Turner at the helm tonight. As always, for Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for watching. Let's do it again tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, right here on Closer Look.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.